Have you ever prayed and heaven said nothing? You believe God is with you. You still feel His presence. But the one thing you need remains untouched. Not no, not yes, just silence. Days became months, and the dreams that once felt urgent now felt distant. No explanations, no signs, no reminders. Only the quiet weight of a promise that refused to disappear. Joseph understood this kind of silence. 13 good years. No update on the dreams. No reminder of what God promised. No sign of when the waiting would end. Only painful days folding into weeks, while the future stayed quiet, and the past offered no explanation, just questions without answers. So walk with Joseph now, not as a hero in a finished story, but as a young man living through a promise with no timeline. At 17, Joseph learned that destiny can be lonely. His father loved him deeply, but his brothers could barely speak to him in peace. And when the dreams came, not one, but two, what should have brought clarity only stirred jealousy and confusion. The future arrived before he was old enough to know what it would cost. Joseph set out from Hebron to find his brothers. No warning from God, no sense of danger. Just a journey that would become the doorway into 13 years of an experience he never imagined. Joseph didn't fall into the pit. He was thrown by his brothers. They stripped his multicolored coat before tossing him into darkness. Sometimes the deepest wounds come from the hands that should have held us. Yet even there, God was silent. Nothing explained, nothing moved. Only stillness and the weight of waiting. The ropes tightened around his wrists as the caravan moved south. Every landmark of home faded behind him. If God was still with him, he chose not to speak. There was no explanation, only the sound of camels, sand, and surrender. Egypt rose before him. Strange language, strange gods, strange streets. Joseph searched for the familiar, but nothing responded. Yet deep within, something remained steady. A quiet awareness that he was not abandoned, even though heaven remained still. Days became months, and Joseph worked with unwavering care. No new dreams, no fresh revelation, just ordinary tasks and silent mornings. But strangely, everything he touched began to flourish. As if God was speaking through outcomes, not words. Temptation came. No voice from heaven. No warning. Joseph chose what he knew of God, not what he heard, not what is convenient. The accusation came like a storm. Nothing matches the fury of a rejected woman. No defense came from heaven. Joseph was taken quietly, carrying unanswered questions. The iron door closed behind him, and the walls swallowed every sound. This was not the future his dreams had promised. Yet even here, he sensed a quiet nearness. Not in spoken words, but in a peace that refused to leave. Time moved slowly in the darkness. Joseph rose each day to serve men who could not help him. Still no explanation about the delay. But the keeper noticed something. The same silent favor that followed Joseph in Potiphar's house was now filling the prison. One day, 2 men were brought into the prison. Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker. They were strangers to Joseph. Yet their arrival would quietly set the stage for what was coming. God remained silent about Joseph's future, but he was already moving behind the scenes. They had dreams they could not understand, and Joseph listened. Even while his own future remained hidden, God spoke through him when others needed answers. True to Joseph's interpretation, the cupbearer walked free. Joseph waited in the prison. Days turned to months, and heaven remained quiet. No rescue, no update on the promise, just the echo of a single truth. God's silence did not mean God was done, and the wait continues. It's been 2 years since the cupbearer left the prison, reinstated to his position, according to Joseph's word. But Joseph was still behind bars. Time in prison did not rush. Seasons changed, but Joseph's life did not. He remembered the dreams, but they offered no instructions, only unanswered questions. Sometimes the hardest part of faith is living between a promise and its fulfillment. Far away from the prison walls, a king could not sleep. Dreams disturbed Pharaoh, vivid, urgent, unsettling. Joseph knew nothing about it, but while heaven was silent to him, God was quietly arranging the moment when silence would break. Then a memory surfaced at the right time, not a year earlier, not a day later. Just when Pharaoh demanded meaning, the cupbearer finally spoke Joseph's name, proving that delay is not forgetfulness, only timing we cannot see. The prison door opened without warning. Joseph was cleaned, shaved, and rushed into light he hadn't seen for years. It's time to stand before Pharaoh. Not because he pushed for his freedom, but because God spoke when it mattered. Pharaoh demanded answers, but Joseph did not claim wisdom. He did not say, "I finally heard from God." He said, "It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh the answer." Even after years of silence, Joseph still believed the one who had not explained himself. And so, in a single moment, everything changed. The prisoner became Egypt's governor. Robes instead of prison's chains. Authority instead of waiting. Silence had not been punishment. It had been preparation for a responsibility he could not have carried at 17. When Joseph looked back, the pattern became clear. God had been present in every chapter, not through dramatic signs, but through favor, restraint, endurance, and timing. Silence was never absence. It was the slow shaping of a man who would save nations. Years later, standing before the brothers who once betrayed him, Joseph finally understood the years without answers. What felt like abandonment had been protection and positioning. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Sometimes heaven is silent because the story is still being written. Silence is confusing. The promise is there, but the answer is not. Sometimes it forces the hardest question we can ask. What do I do when God doesn't explain himself? Joseph never received clarity about his brothers, his suffering, or the path ahead. But he did receive something else. Not instructions, but grace to remain steady. While waiting, notice what is happening around you. Small graces, protection, favor, guidance you cannot yet explain. Growth in heart, courage, patience, resilience, forming quietly. Your story unfolding. Record prayers, reflections, experiences, service in waiting. Help others even while your own answers are delayed. Trust in timing. God works behind the scenes. Revelation comes in His time. Some silences are not about answers. They are about formation, positioning, and readiness. God was shaping Joseph's integrity before giving him influence, strengthening restraint before giving him power, and building forgiveness before giving him authority. Silence is not God leaving. It is God working where eyes cannot see and ears cannot hear. If you are in a silent season, hear this. Delay is not denial. Quiet is not rejection. Your waiting is not wasted. Joseph didn't see it then, and neither will you at first. God might not be talking about your situation because He's busy talking to you. But heaven is never quiet because nothing is happening. Heaven is quiet because everything is coming together. Thank you for watching. Share this story with someone in the middle of their own silence. Subscribe to Bible Stories Studio, where we bring scriptures to life, one story at a time.